long time in the making. Since our panel at South by Southwest, we've just been hearing from so many filmmakers who were really excited about the session, and we're really grateful to our partners here at Kickstarter for helping us to bring this to all of you. And as we said, please do put your questions in the chat as we go through. There's going to be a lot that we're covering today, but don't worry if we're going fast. We are going to send you this deck as a thank you for being here with us today. So with that, I'd love if you want to just drop in the chat where you're joining us from. We want this to be a really, interactive session and for everyone to really get the most out of it. So that's really our commitment to you for this session. I am John Treefry. I'm a writer producer. I've done a number of short films, multiple South by as well as Tribeca appearances, and I'm an expert instructor for Stage 32. And I'm joined by my amazing peers here, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Taylor, why don't you kick it off? You're muted.
Unmute now. Hey, everybody. Really excited to be bringing this panel to you all. As John said, backed by popular demand. So I am newly heading up Kickstarter's film division, and I have really spent my career finding ways to build infrastructure for artists to thrive. So that's exactly what we want this presentation to do for you all, and especially that Q&A portion is really to explore how we can use different funding methods to help you all thrive.
I'm happy to be here. We did this about a month ago in person, and it was so lit. So I'm happy to be here with John and Taylor. So I'm a filmmaker born in Queens, grew up in Port-au-Prince. I live all around the world. Half the year I'm in the US, half the year I'm between Mumbai, Cairo, London, Mexico City. And I've been shooting, I want to say, every month this year, whether it's a short or it's a feature. And I've used a lot of the tactics that we're about to speak about. I've done shorts with John. We've played Holly shorts, together. And, I've been able to make shorts that have turned into features and have had an incredible, successful, run and get distribution. And I want to say that you're going to walk away with some diamonds and pearls today. And I'm just happy to, share that information with all of you.
That's beautiful. And these two individuals, Taylor and Ramphis, are super humble. They're both amazing in their own right. So I just want to really frame it for everyone here. This is a powerhouse panel that you're getting insights from. I'm honored to be here, and we're really committed to making this be high value for you. We set the goal that we want this to be Kickstarter's best event like this. So we're setting a high bar, and we're excited for you guys to really get a lot out of this. So just a little bit about our past work, just so you know that we know what we're talking about. Here are some of the films that we have produced, short films. How to Be Alone premiered at South by Southwest. Stucco won at South by Southwest. Souls of Totality was competed at Tribeca, won 3 Oscar qualifying festivals. And then Ricky, amazing short film that Ramphis produced, actually won at Sundance, and then was selected at Sundance. And then the feature was also selected for Sundance and then won. So really an incredible track record of the folks that are here to share their insights with you. Going to go through really the what we're going to cover here, what you can expect. So first, we're going to start with the challenges of raising money for shorts. These are all experiences that I'm sure many of you have encountered. Certainly, Ramphis, Taylor, and myself have. This is part of the joys and the lows of doing short films. Specifically, we're going to talk about our film 5150, which we raised over $85,000 for using Kickstarter to show you exactly how we did it. And then we're going to go through our two favorite and most powerful funding options. And then the best part of this session is the interactive questions and answers. So again, please do type those in as we go through this material. There's going to be a lot here. So we want you to have really pointed, specific questions as things come up through the actual session. So let's start with the challenges of raising money for shorts. I'm just curious, for those of you filmmakers, put in the chat, have you done a short before? And if so, have you had challenges in raising money for those projects? Some of the reasons that we really think about doing a short is really that there's an incredible infrastructure of festivals and press that have millions of dollars of marketing and funding behind them. And shorts can really be a total catalyst for your career, but they have to be exceptional. And then we already talked about Ricky, the short film that Ramphis produced. And I'd love, Ramphis, if you can just talk about that experience for Rashad Frett, who's the writer and director of that film, and what he gained through producing and directing an incredible short film.
Yeah, I could definitely speak to that, John. So Ricky actually was a thesis student film for NYU. Rashad is or was in the graduate program. So he wrote the short, directed it. We shot it in 2021, and we basically put it together mainly through grants. And my business partner, put the equity in. So we shot it, I want to say November of 2021. We submitted the film to the Sundance Film Festival in 22. What ended up happening was that because of Rasad's previous short, King, which had won a DJ Student Award, there were agents and managers that had been circling him. And one of the agents specifically is Craig Castell. Craig Castell represents Ryan Coogler, Ronaldo Green, Cary Fukunaga. I mean, the list goes on and on. All A-list, writers, directors, and he had seen the short, fell in love with it, and reached out to Mike Plant, the senior programmer at Sundance, and said, "Hey, I'm going to sign this kid, and you guys should take a look at it." So that's exactly what happened. Craig called Rashad, signed him over the phone, and myself and the other producers, Simon Tafiq and myself emailed Sundance to put it on their radar. What happens next is that Craig Castell speaks to Michelle Shatter, one of the founders of Sundance, and she asks all about the feature film. I'd love to, know more about it. We would like to invite, Ricky to submit to the Sundance Writers Lab. So the funny thing is that there was no feature script. So within a week, Rasad and co-writer Lin Q, who came onto the feature, wrote the feature version of Ricky. Was submitted to Sundance. It was invited to the Writers Lab, but it was submitted to the Writers Lab. And about a month later, we got into Sundance, the short, and then the feature got into the Writers Lab. And then we announced at Sundance 2023 that Ricky, Rashad signed to WME, and also about the lab. So what happens next is Rashad is invited to the director's lab, and then Pierre, our fellow producer, is invited to the producer's lab, and we become 3 of 3. And WME comes on to represent the feature version of Ricky, and then financiers are reaching out to WME to finance the film. And we pretty much go back and back. And as this is happening, Ricky the Short is playing all over the world at different festivals. Ricky ends up winning the Woodstock Film Festival, which is a film festival in Woodstock, New York. And then we Oscar qualify, and then we start our Oscar run. And Ricky runs for an Oscar from 23 into 24. In 23, simultaneously at the same time, if you guys remember, there was a writer strike and director strike and actor strike, so we couldn't shoot Ricky. We were going to shoot Ricky summer of 23, but it could not happen because of the strikes. So what happens is it's summer of 24, July of 24, we shoot Ricky the feature, and then we premiere 3 months ago, January of 2025, Ricky in official competition. And Rasad ends up winning U.S. Best U.S. Dramatic Director And a ton of buyers come to our premiere. Our premiere is sold out. All of our screenings are sold out. And now we're literally negotiating with everyone you can imagine that buys movies to sell the movie. And Ricky just played last weekend in the Minneapolis Film Festival. It'll be playing in Atlanta. It'll be playing SF Film. And it's really taking off in the festival circuit. And that all started because of the short. You know, that's how Rashad got signed. That's how WME got involved. And, you know, we were a seven-figure budget. I can't say the number of the budget, but we're definitely, you know, seven figures. We're under eight figures. And this all happened because of the success of the short film. Did I miss anything, John?
No, I mean that's I mean it's so powerful to see under the hood for everybody here, all the filmmakers and me included, that this is a playbook that works. And we all, the three of us as your panelists and also fellow creators, we all deploy this in our own careers and our own projects, as you heard Ramphis share. And what's so powerful is that you do not need permission to do a short film, and you can literally greenlight yourself, but you do need to raise the money. And to talk specifically about some of the challenges, I mean, if any of this sounds familiar, drop it in the chat. I'm seeing some feedback come in. People have done shorts. Have you ever wanted to make a short film to level up your career? Has fundraising been a challenge for you? Do you want to make an amazing short, but you struggle to raise the funds? And I saw this for sure in the chat, and I've experienced this. Have you had to put your own money into your projects? These are all challenges that are part of the actual fundraising or financing journey to make shorts. And that's really why we're excited to go deeper with you guys on how you can solve these problems. So we talked about Ramphis' project, Ricky. Now let's go specifically into this project, 5150. So this project had a total budget raised of over $85,000. We secured best-in-class partners, including Company 3, Chicken Bone FX, as well as Formosa Group, for post-sound. We were selected for the Tribeca Creators Market. And then we also had David Oyelowo as our executive producer and Giovanna Depo attached for the series. And we share this to say, if we can do it, so can you. This project, very much like Ricky, was completely independent. And so although we're talking about big names here, David Oyelowo, WME, the playbook is really about putting together an exceptional package and project that then you can raise financing around. And truly, I mean, the democratization that Kickstarter allows for creators to not only raise money, but create evangelists and champions for their projects is literally unparalleled, and it's not available anywhere else. So let's go deeper into how we actually did that. And this is where we'll unpack our two favorite funding mechanisms that you can deploy into your projects. So we raised, the breakdown of this 85,000 was that we raised over 33,000 with Kickstarter. You can see our campaign page here. We exceeded our $25,000 goal and raised over 33,000. And then we secured another 52,000 from private donors. And 5150 was funded through two distinct pathways. One is crowdfunding. The other is fiscal sponsorship. So how do you actually fundraise for your short film? So there are a number of different funding sources that are available. We already talked about self-funding. That's certainly one that many of us are familiar with. Certainly not recommended, especially if you want to play at the level where your film could be competing at Sundance. It's very difficult to self-fund to the production values that I think you need to see to compete at top festivals. Loans are another source that we see filmmakers use. Can be really challenging because short films are really not, they don't deliver a return on investment oftentimes. And so it's difficult for these loans to be paid back. Grants and fellowships, these are available that are essentially soft money that doesn't need to be returned to investors. So these can be great. Investors, this is one that we see that filmmakers make a lot of mistakes around with short films specifically. We'll get into this with our fiscal sponsorship section, where we're going to talk about more detail why you don't want to use an investment structure with your shorts. And then crowdfunding. This is really one of the most powerful funding sources that we use for our projects. And we're going to talk to you specifically about how we use that as a 1-2 punch paired with fiscal sponsorship / donations. So these two right here, these are really the best funding sources that we really recommend. And then finally, brand sponsorship. I did see somebody in the chat put that they had used that in the past. That's also very powerful. But let's focus on our 2 favorite funding options. So Taylor, why don't you take us through crowdfunding and why that can be really powerful for filmmakers and creators?
Yes. So crowdfunding is a really great opportunity, one for you to just let people know that you are a filmmaker in the next project that you have. I know a lot of people who are here today are seasoned filmmakers. You've made shorts, you've made features, but have you yet invited your community and also people who might be attracted to the kinds of stories that you are meant to tell? Have you invited them to be a part of your filmmaking process? So that is what crowdfunding really allows. There's that first piece of course, like getting the funding, and that second piece of engagement, which is particularly important in the, entertainment media landscape right now. It's can be, a lot of work. But it's always work, right? To get money. The work really is, how do you create a compelling way for you to communicate to people like, hey, I am me. I make these kinds of films. This is why it is important. And I want you to be along for that journey. So the work, I really try to work to reframe with people like, oh, crowdfunding is so much. And, we need to do all of this fulfillment and the like. What you really need to do for most people, especially for film, most backers, what they're looking for is just to be a part of the process. Hair Love ran a campaign with us for their short, won an Oscar, and then everybody who backed them on Twitter, when it was Twitter, they were saying, "Hey, we won an Oscar." So that's the opportunity that you're giving people. And again, it's a great way to build buzz. On the fiscal sponsorship part, which I know John and Ramfis will share more, but that is a really great way to get people to support at a tax deductible level, and you can also have a fiscal sponsor on our platform.
Beautiful. And we love that 1-2 punch of crowdfunding as well as fiscal sponsorship. You saw it. We're really pulling the curtain back on our project 5150. And this is exactly these 2 funding sources, exactly how we raised over 85K for that project. So let's go through crowdfunding as a really powerful tip of the spear, if you will, for how you can get your short film funded. So we really love Kickstarter. I mean, we're of course a little biased, having worked with the platform on multiple projects, but really hands down. And Taylor, isn't there's no. I'm not being endorsed to say this or anything. Like, Kickstarter has the best reach. Like, that's just hands down indisputable. And this is why we really love Kickstarter, is because there's other options out there, but Kickstarter is the one that's going to expose your project to the most people that don't know you. And that for us with 5150 was incredible. And setting a really achievable goal is a very important best practice for any campaign that's going to be successful on the platform. And Taylor, why don't you go through some of these more specific benefits and how filmmakers can think about those for the platform specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. of course, as I was saying before, the funding piece, yes, that's the most obvious piece of it. But right now, it's so important to prove that you have an engaged audience. We talk with both emerging and established filmmakers who, are looking for, especially the established folks looking for distribution, and really needing to prove at this time in the industry that they have that audience. The Apprentice actually ran a marketing campaign recently on our platform so that they could, really gain greater dollars. They raised about 400,000. They could gain greater dollars to help them, get towards distribution, and it did support them with that. Also, career growth. We also see a lot of production companies come to the platform and build into your overall business model, your film business model, building in an annual campaign every year. And what that does, again, is like allow for you to engage an audience that is very interested in the kinds of work and projects that you make. And as what we see happen is, you set a smaller goal and then a certain number of people back. Then you take your film out, you send it to festivals, you do, the whole process that Ramphis was describing. Then the next project, then you have more of an audience. So you're just building that over time. We've seen filmmakers, production companies do that, over the course of like a decade. We're almost at 16 years here at Kickstarter. And so that's a really great opportunity for your career growth. What I say to folks is work the traditional system, please. If you can get those millions in the traditional way, amazing. And also kind of take your power back in this moment, greenlight yourself, and consider how you can build crowdfunding into your business model because it allows for that direct relationship to fans, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a second. Overall, what we're looking at Kickstarter right now is a special emphasis on genre, folks who can really have that built-in audience. I know some folks in the chat are saying that, you are horror thriller filmmakers and animation, and you've all have done quite a lot. Those are really great opportunities to build an audience and fan base. So we're focusing there. We'll always support shorts. Kickstarter has a long history of supporting shorts. We actually just wrapped up our open call called Long Story Short, and we, in the month of March, take a lot of time and energy to promote short films that are on the platform and really working to help them reach their campaign goals. And of course, for documentary film, wherever you are in the process, I think somebody had mentioned post as well, like especially across the board for post-production finishing funds, is really great to run a campaign because people know that, hey, I'm helping you complete this and I'm probably going to see it sooner rather than later. And so that's a really great opportunity.
Beautiful. And to get more granular about some of the best practices we've seen for shorts, and a lot of this, we've seen in the chat, a lot of people are doing features as well. You heard Ramphis. I mean, he's doing a lot of the work that we do for short films translates directly for features. So keep in mind some of these best practices can apply to a feature if you're crowdfunding for that. Ideal campaign duration is typically 30 days is what we see. Certainly, you can do a shorter or longer campaign, but in our experience, that's what we've seen as really the sweet spot. Best practice is really to have at least 30 days of pre-launch before your campaign goes live. And Taylor, can you talk about this last bullet point of really reaching that critical threshold in terms of being showing up on Kickstarter's algorithm and how the platform really favors projects that hit these goals?
Yeah, absolutely. So John's last point about the 30 days before you launch your campaign, that pre-launch phase being very important. It's so key because if you are very aggressive and really reaching out to folks ahead of that and they know when the campaign is going to launch, then you really can track and see on that first day. Hopefully the goal is to hit 30% of your overall goal. And so we do have tons of new features that support filmmakers specifically with reaching your audience, reaching the Kickstarter platform audience in a meaningful way. And one of those is actually a pre-launch page feature that we have where ahead of your campaign launching, you can, go on socials, go directly to people via email, text, even phone calls. We still do, the phone calls are still important. You can reach out and say, hey, go follow my pre-launch page for my campaign. And as soon as it actually goes live, they get a direct email for them to be invited to back. So when you have that pre-launch page set up now, you'll be able to see how many people are following that page, and it gives you an indicator of what you might be able to expect when it comes to like, okay, how many people are gonna back. It lets you know, okay, how much harder do I need to push? That's just really important. So if you can hit 30% of your goal in those first, 24 hours, it is a really strong indicator to your audience that, okay, this project is likely going to get funded. It's okay if you don't hit 30% right in the first 24 hours. And also, you just have to continue to really work ahead of your campaign launching, really work to get as many people obviously like opted in as you can. Because psychologically, if for some reason, folks like to support people that they already think are successful. And we know this. So we really want to see you all, and we deeply encourage you to make those like personalized messaging to folks in advance. So then when it's time to back the campaign, they're ready to do so.
Amazing. And just to talk through some of these additional best practices, super important to have a very compelling video as well as imagery throughout your campaign page. There's amazing resources that Kickstarter has for creators, so you can see other examples. This is how we did it for 5150, is looked at what are some of the top performing film campaigns doing, and how can we create something that's very that's unique to our project, but is really engaging for someone who's coming in and may not have any context about who you are as a filmmaker. Taylor already touched on this strategic outreach with your pre-launch, but again, with that goal setting, so important that you're really targeting a campaign goal that is within reach. Kickstarter is an all or nothing funding model, which is really essential, because if you do not hit your campaign goal, then you do not collect any of the funds. Really building your community with rewards that are actually achievable and that you can really fulfill is super important, as Taylor touched on. For film projects in particular, doing like physical rewards is oftentimes not really what people are looking for. We've experienced this, Ramphis and I, through 5150. We did physical rewards, and to be honest, I don't think that those are really moving the needle as much as they would for, say, a project that's focused on a physical product, for example, right? What people are excited about with films and filmmakers is really being part of that journey, creating that experience where they can have a direct connection to you as a creator, as a fan. So that's, I think, a very helpful guardrail, if you will, that can keep you really focused and not necessarily waste time on doing physical rewards if they're not going to be really that impactful, because they do take a lot of effort and they also cost money to produce. And then regular updates, very important through the production process. As Taylor touched on, what you're doing is you're creating advocates and evangelists for not only this project for you, but for you as an artist and as a filmmaker. And so here's an opportunity for you to almost bring these people behind the scenes throughout the production process, and having that access, you can post those as updates that are going out automatically through the platform. That's like a very easy way to do it. We also are big fans, Ramphis and myself are big fans of producer updates that would go out like as an email. But you can essentially write one update and send an email out to maybe your fiscal sponsors, your high dollar donors, and then send the same update out via Kickstarter. And Taylor, I'd love for you to just talk about this last point of the late pledges.
Yes, so we, as I mentioned, have a ton of really exciting new features that are designed to just create, more robust options for you all and your campaigns. So late pledges is very cool because once you hit your goal, the campaign is closed. Folks can continue to contribute through late pledges. They can continue to contribute to the campaign. So for all those people that say like, "Hey, I missed." So sorry, I missed the end of the campaign. I missed the last date. All good. You can contribute to our late pledges. So that's a really good feature that we recommend that folks keep going for at least a couple of weeks so you can continue to get additional funds trickling in. As I mentioned, when it comes to like other reward options, you can offer people secret rewards so they feel that exclusivity, which everybody loves. But it really gives people that option to feel like they're a part of the process. And we also have another feature called Pledge Over Time. Where, if somebody does want to actually contribute, let's say $1,000 to the campaign, but they don't want to pay that all in one go, they could break it up and say 4 $250 payments. So lots of new features that you all can find on our site if you just type in like, new features at Kickstarter.
Amazing. Okay, great. So let's get into our second funding mechanism that we are just such big fans of. Ramphis and I have seen this work across not just 5150, but multiple projects. And this is fiscal sponsorship. This is like the like 1-2 punch. Like if crowdfunding is the jab, like this is the cross. Forgive the boxing metaphor, but the point is we love this. We really are huge fans of this, and let's get into why that is. So basically, the way that fiscal sponsorship works is that it provides a nonprofit tax-exempt status for a project. And this is really commonly used for documentaries, but we found that many short filmmakers don't realize that they can use it for their projects as well, regardless of genre. So whether you have a doc short or you have an animated short or a comedy, a drama, it doesn't matter. You can still use this funding mechanism. And there's a couple partners that we really like. Ramphis, do you want to go through each of these and talk about why we like these nonprofits for our fiscal sponsors?
Yeah, I mean, Bravemaker is a personal, friend, homie now, but he was actually at our South by Southwest panel. But boots on the ground, really like good look to use Bravemaker. The Film Collaborative has been around for a long time. They have an extensive, resume, and they do tons of projects, narrative, documentary, shorts. And creative visions is what I think we used on 5150, if I remember, when we shot in 2021. So they're all, like great options to go with. And there's other options as well. These are the three that we've used, I would say, within the past, couple of years.
Yeah, and these are all great partners, and there's others as well, but we really like these partners, and we're suggesting these to all of you because they're very flexible in terms of genre and specifically working with short films. You can also deploy this for features as well. And what you can expect is that fiscal sponsors are going to typically take a fee between 5 or 10%, depending on who your partner is and what your raise amount is. And the reason that we like this is it's very simple for short films and you don't need investor agreements. Ramphis and I are working on a feature together right now, and the production legal and the finance legal for a feature film is a significant undertaking. And for short films, again, we're not making a lot of money on these projects, if any. And so to go through the work to create an investor agreement when you're really never going to make your money back is just a total waste of time. And so donations are actually a better fit anyway. We've already talked about Kickstarter, and that's all donation-based crowdfunding, right? As opposed to equity-based crowdfunding like WeFunder. And so this is why we really love pairing fiscal sponsorship with crowdfunding, because basically for you as a short filmmaker, as a creator, you are then creating something where you're able to package it in a way that's very appealing for crowdfunding as well as fiscal sponsor donors. But either way, that money that comes in, you're not on the hook to pay back, and you don't have these ongoing requirements for accounting and legal that are come with actually bringing on investors, versus donors for your project. So this is one of the key things for us of why we really love fiscal sponsorship. And I think something just to be really candid about is like, this is also about keeping you in compliance. Because even if you think that, well, I actually do want to do an investor agreement, we would just encourage you to make sure you know what that means, and that you're really, if you're doing that for a short film, that you're doing it really clearly. Because many of the filmmakers that we know who don't use this mechanism, they are actually not in compliance and they don't even know it. Okay, so although we really like these two models, and they've worked really well for our projects, we also just want to say the best approach is the one that fits your specific film. We saw in the chat that there was at least one filmmaker who had referenced brand sponsorships and partnerships. And certainly we're not saying that this is a one size fits all. And the beauty of short films more broadly is that they are so flexible in terms of not only how you fundraise, but also how you distribute. Ramphis and I, and Taylor, we've all experimented with different ways of getting our films out there. And I think that's what's so exciting about this format, is that, we can do, for example, we've released short films like with the trades before, like one of the short films that we showed you at the beginning of the presentation, Stucco, actually won at South by Southwest. And then we did an exclusive release with the Hollywood Reporter. You could never do that with a feature film. But because short films have different needs, they also have different opportunities. We really like that as like a way where we can just, especially as we're facing so many headwinds in the traditional, film and entertainment space, we just love the flexibility that short films give us as creators, and how we can really be innovative, not just on the fundraising side, but also on the distribution side. And as we said, a lot of the things that we covered here, they're not just limited to short films, because if you know how to fundraise for short film, it will provide valuable lessons that will extend for the rest of your career. Taylor touched on this specifically with how when you're building your fan base and you're building community using a platform like Kickstarter, that can then dovetail directly into a feature. You heard Ramphis talk about how he's using a lot of the same investors, for Ricky to then fundraise for the feature. And a lot of the things that we're doing that we shared with you, it's not just limited to short film. We practice these across different areas and across different categories of projects that we use. And so by no means do we want you to think narrowly that the things that we've shared with you and covered here are just applicable strictly to short films. We hope that you will, really think about crowdfunding as well as fiscal sponsorship, whether you're doing a short or a feature or some other format. And again, All of this material is going to be shared with you. The deck that we just went through will be sent to you afterwards. So don't worry if you have, you didn't get all the notes from the bullet points. We're going to be sending that all to you. And now we want to get into really the best part of the session, which is our question and answers. And we also just encourage you guys to connect with us on Instagram. Here are our handles. But seriously, we'd love to open it up. This is our favorite part of this session. So we want to make this really interactive. So please do put your questions into the chat. We'd love to take them and get under the hood with you guys to help you with your projects.
Thanks so much, John and Taylor and Ramphis, for sharing these incredible insights and tips. So we're now going to move over to the Q&A portion of this webinar. So feel free to keep dropping your questions to the Q&A box or as well as any follow-ups. And what I will do is I'll just start going through the questions, take some like that are sort of follow-ups from the conversation, and I'll ask them here to our presenters. So for the first one, I'll throw it to you, John and Ramphis, about the 5150 project. We had a couple questions here about the fiscal sponsorship, and in particular about the sequencing of the funding. And so, in particular, did you secure the Kickstarter funding first, or did you secure the fiscal sponsorship? And just more, if you could give us more clarity there about the order of the different funding that you'd use in this combined approach.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the truth is, and Ramphis, chime in if you want to add anything here, but it was really concurrent. And we recommend that if you're going to be doing a crowdfunding campaign, not a bad idea to secure your fiscal sponsor early. One thing that we really recommend with a fiscal sponsor is they have an ability for your project to have an online page and a place where donations can happen. And this is very similar to what you get with Kickstarter, but not all fiscal sponsors will actually enable that for you. And so that's really important. You want to make it very easy for folks to be able to donate online via credit card. And so for us, we were really gearing up the crowdfunding campaign alongside our fiscal sponsorship campaign. And I think that the sequencing is best in such a way where you can use the momentum of your crowdfunding campaign to really help drive the momentum for fiscal sponsorship. Because the way to think about this is that fiscal sponsorship is a lot more like traditional investing and really investor relations. And, Ramphis, maybe you can touch on that and how, that's a lot more high touch. You're having to communicate one-on-one with people who are writing bigger checks and not doing the smaller donations that we were seeing on Kickstarter.
Yeah, I mean, to that, John, also I want to say is that on 5150, you did a lot of prep work, which that's really important to have a successful campaign. You pre-qualified, I want to say, the much bigger checks in advance to let them know that the campaign was going to happen. So that way you have an idea of like what potentially is going to come in. Okay, if I speak to X amount of people, X amount of people have agreed to put X amount of dollars. All right, so once we go live, it's not like, okay, they're seeing it for the first time. So you had done some of that legwork, and simultaneously when I'd come on, I'd spoken to, our friend James, and spoke with him about the entire process. And at the time when we were getting ready to shoot 5150, James and a group of his investors and friends were looking to defund the police because of what happened with George Floyd. So ultimately, I think like we were speaking to James at the same time as the crowdfunding campaign was happening. And I think that excited James. Either way, he was in because we sold him on, how, he's going to be able to write off these dollars. B, his dollars will be activated towards a campaign. And once he put the money in, his colleagues, came on board and did the same thing because money hangs out with money. That's usually how it goes. So, if James put his money where his mouth is, the other investors would say, okay, all right, well, James is for real. He's bringing us on this deal. He put his own money in, so we'll jump in as well. And then they were able to see that the campaign, because within 24 hours, we didn't hit 30%. We hit over 50% of our campaign. I don't remember the exact number, but I know our campaign was 25K and we hit 15,000, so that first day. And then we were just cruising at that point. And even after we finished our campaign, we were still getting people reaching out that still wanted to donate towards the campaign. But what I had done was I had built a relationship with James over time before COVID, and we had been talking about working on projects together. So I think it was teed up because of the package that we put together in front and behind the camera, and also in terms of accomplishing the goals that align with what James wanted.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly add that you can run your fiscal sponsor, like you can attach your fiscal sponsor to your Kickstarter campaign. What will happen then is all of the contributions that you get to the campaign will be tax deductible for those people. So that's definitely something to consider. I know we have a ton of questions. I kind of want to just knock a couple out that I'm seeing really quick, Yvonne, if that's okay.
Go for
We
it,
recommend
please.
that you run a campaign for 30 days. When it comes to the question of private financing, we are not saying do not do that. If you can get money from investors and you're okay with that exchange and whatever the terms are, like good for you. This is an and also we really think it's important to have this in your reserves, like crowdfunding and fiscal sponsorship and the traditional ways of getting money. That is exactly what John and Ramphis, as very successful independent filmmakers, that's exactly what they do. So it's all a both and. How
Thank you.
long?
And I'll
Oh
add
yeah.
a follow-up to this one too, Taylor, kind of to what this conversation is going. And in terms of, let's say, like funding a short film, is it more effective to request the full budget or to ask for a smaller amount and then target this specific budget, like, for crowdfunding and then seek the funds through other means as we have talked about?
Yeah, it's absolutely more effective to raise for a particular part of the film. If you're able to raise for post-production and finishing, that's great. You really never want to be raising for development on its own because folks will never know when they're going to see that. So you really want to think about, okay, also with setting the goal, I see a lot of questions about setting goals in the all or nothing model. It's all or nothing because it gives people this sense of urgency to support you now. And so the way that we advise that you work with the all or nothing model is set a minimum number of like, this is what I would need to make the film at a minimum. And then you can ask for more dollars with stretch goals. So stretch goals is the opportunity to say, hey, our minimum goal right now is 10K. We really, to make the movie that we want to make, need 60. Help us get there. But if you set that minimum at 10, then you got the 10 and you can keep pushing beyond that. And I know Ramfis and John also have like exceeded their campaign goals as well in the past.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, I think to Taylor, your point, it's what is very important for a campaign is not to leave unanswered questions. So if we as a creator or filmmaker are saying, okay, we are raising 15 grand, but our budget is 30, you don't want someone who's a potential backer to be saying, well, wait a second, where is the other 15 coming from? Because if I back this project and I'm, committing for this film to get made, how are they going to actually come up with the difference? And so as long as you can really clearly communicate that, that's what Ramphis and I did for 5150. We were very transparent with our crowdfunding backers to say, hey, we are not asking you for the entire budget. We have the rest of the budget being made up in other ways, and that way people had a lot of confidence coming in and backing for the goal that we were setting.
And John, is there in terms of the setting goals, is there a price bracket that you see that backers tend to prefer for, let's say, a feature film versus a short film?
I'll defer to Taylor on this because I think it's much more specific to the creator as opposed to the project. But I'd love, Taylor, if you have a POV on that.
Yeah, and in terms of just what the number is for folks.
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to get is that probably the answer is more nuanced than that.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's a
so I
great
wonder if you
question.
can share more. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you think about the average backer, if the average person can support at about $75, multiply, by how many people you think you can get to support you at that number. And really that should be your goal. We recommend that you have rewards that are range from $10. Hey, you're just supporting, appreciate you between 25 and $30 of you'll get digital access to the film. And then as you keep going up to, the $125 mark, maybe $300 mark, rewards that, feel really weighty and good for folks. But you really want to think about, okay, that outreach list that you make is so important, and really directly connecting with people is intensely important, because when it's personal, and they understand how they can really be a part of that filmmaking journey for you, especially if you don't already have a built-in audience. You really want to connect directly. So I would say always setting a minimum goal, especially for shorts, right? Set a minimum goal of between like 10 and 15,000, and then push from there. If you have the audience, the reach, the community backing to set your minimum goal at 50,000, and you know for sure that can likely happen, great. But if your ultimate goal is 50, why not set it for 25 as the minimum goal and then push for 50? So it requires just a lot of, I know for us as movie people, the math and, thinking through that is really important, and being strategic with the number that you set. But once you are successful, hey, you've raised 15,000 and you really want 50, like you can keep pushing and keep engaging folks to ask them for additional support. We have a lot of resources on our site, speaking to how to run a great campaign, how you consider setting your goal. We actually just launched, really excited that we just launched a learning lab. You can sign up for it on our site, and it really explains from start to finish how to create a compelling campaign, how you should think about setting your goal for funding, how you can engage your backer community. So there's a lot of information there, along with some really great articles and blog posts on our site related to film.
I want to take one other question of one that I saw that I think is really pressing from Angelica. This is about 5150 specifically, and why we didn't pursue private equity investment. And we touched on this previously, but I want to just expand on this, is that short films do not make their money back. Ramphis and I have done, between us, like dozens of short films at this point, and we've had our films at the top festivals around the world. We've sold our films internationally. We've had our films Oscar qualify. None of our short films have ever made their money back. And that's the important thing of why we do not position shorts as an equity vehicle, similar to the way that we would do film finance for features. So this is the underlying reason why we just do not recommend that you create an investment vehicle for a short film. It's just so much easier to do the fiscal sponsorship, because essentially the interface with the investors is the same. You're still getting them to write individual checks that are typically higher value than what you would see on a crowdfunding platform. And what you're offering them is the nonprofit tax deductible write-off that comes with a contribution to a 501c3 nonprofit. This is the pitch that we use for investors, quote unquote, for short films. And we just don't have to deal with any of the ongoing accounting and administrative costs that are associated with that. So that's really the bottom line there.
Thank you so much. Okay, I think now would be great to touch on some of the pre-launch questions that we have in the Q&A box. I think there's, to give context, there's some questions around, like, is Kickstarter for only for creators who have an existing fan base, questions about paid ads. And so really, I think that what can really get at all of these questions is what goes into the 30 days of pre-launch that was mentioned, and specifically, like, who should creators be reaching out to at this time, like any sort of steps that they should be taking during this like crucial pre-launch phase.
Your outreach list should really consist of people who are in your network. So the question of, do I need to already have a fan base? Absolutely not. It doesn't matter if you have 1 million followers. People who typically have 1 million followers do not get the type of engagement that they need when it comes to like who's going to spend money, with me. And so what you want to do is create a list of family, friends, colleagues, networks that you've been in, networks, just your community, and really think broadly about it, come up with a really strong list, like 100+ people and counting, of who could support the campaign. When it comes to things like paid ads, etc., if you can afford to do that, additional marketing is always helpful. And also, if you cannot, personalized phone calls go a long way. And I know that Ramphis and John, for their film, there were folks who were calling people, letting them know about the movie and inviting them to be a part of it. So really, now's the best time to start building your community, building people who care about, your work and are invested in it. Now's the perfect time.
Thank you, Taylor. And the final question, so we can end here as we're at time, and I'll throw this to the three presenters. What is the most frequently forgotten line item in your budget?
This is a great question. I would say marketing. This is something where filmmakers just consistently overlook it, even for short films. Ramphis and I are such advocates of this. That means that we're really putting money into our festival submissions at a budgetary level. We're also thinking about cutting a trailer. A lot of people think, well, why do I want a trailer for a short film? We've seen trailers work really well for our shorts, like 5150. Also, really good key art, like a poster or a thumbnail. Very important to budget for that. And then if you can, really putting money aside for PR, especially with your festival trajectory for the film. So marketing, I think, hands down, for I would say is the number one thing that we see overlooked in a budget.
Thanks so much for that tip, John. So thanks, everyone. That concludes our webinar for today. Thank you for joining. We hope this session has been both helpful and inspiring as you plan your next project on Kickstarter. Keep an eye on your inbox. We'll be sending out the link with the webinar recording, along with some other helpful resources for you to plan your next film campaign. And then also, you'll be receiving our monthly creator newsletter packed with the latest product updates, tips, resources, and details on upcoming webinars and events like this one. Thanks again for being here, and we can't wait to see you, the incredible projects that you have, and help them bring them to life.
And I just wanted to say, on behalf of the panelists, like, thank you guys so much for being here. We are just, this really lights us up. We love connecting with you guys, and please reach out. Let's stay in touch. You're going to receive from Ramphis and I the deck that we went over as a thank you just for being here. And we're just like you. We're filmmakers, we're creators, and we really believe in the power of community and collaboration. This is why we do it. So we're so thrilled to connect with all of you, and just look forward to more great events like this. And thank you again to our partners at Kickstarter for making this all possible. We are such big fans of the platform and can't wait to do more events like this.
Thanks
Awesome.
all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Bye.